Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to Respect Her Game. If you're enjoying this show, be sure to check out NESN's daily sports podcast, Boston Has Ended a Chat. You can listen on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. What is up? I'm AB here with Kasey Hudson. Finally, back again. It's been a minute. We got a very fun show for you all today. We're going to talk WNBA season, highlight the newest members of the New England Patriots, get a fleet check-in from our hockey expert, Kasey. But it's been a little bit since I've been at the desk with Kasey. So, Kasey, what have you been up to?
I know. I feel like I haven't seen you in weeks, even though it wasn't like too long ago. But you said it. Now that Fleet are hopefully gearing up for the postseason, let's see what I did this weekend. I had an off day. I had a Fleet game coverage, and then just getting adjusted now that spring is finally here for Boston and stuff. So, yeah, it's been good. It's just been a fun balance of being in that crossover season of so many different things going on. You know, I'm running to Fenway. I'm running to Fleet stuff.
Yeah, you've been everywhere. I've seen you from at Fenway, at the Fleet. I mean, but it's awesome when you're really getting to dive into all things Boston sports. So it's very fun.
Yeah, I'm feeling like the landscape is finally kind of like settling in for me, but it's been really cool. It's been awesome, kind of just like meeting everybody, a part of each organization and stuff. And I'm really excited to see what takes place with the Fleet. So that was basically my weekend.
What has been like something that stuck out to you from just Boston fan zones in general?
Oh my gosh. So that's a fun question considering that we're in NHL playoffs right now, and I'm getting like so many messages from back home. It's like, what are you thinking of the Lightning? And what are you thinking of this? And I'm like, I'm really focused on what's going on with Boston sports right now. But
good answer. That was a test. Kasey
passed.
It
was a test. Thank you. But it's been like just the passion is on a whole nother level, and you just meet you have different interactions with fans in Boston, I have come to notice. So it's been really cool just kind of adjusting to that, whereas like in Tampa, especially in the hockey market, it's blooming, it's growing, it's new. So you get more questions versus like this whole conversational of like, well, I think this, but what do you think of this kind of flow? Yeah. So that's been an adjustment, but it's also been really cool to get to know like, you know, the big Boston fans about here.
No, that's awesome. And I was just in Seattle, Washington, and kind of similar with the Kraken kind of being there. When I was growing up there, wasn't really a big hockey city because there wasn't a hockey team. And so now it's cool. You go to the Seahawks Pro Shop and they have Seattle Seahawks jerseys that look like an NHL jersey. And it's like, oh, you know, you wouldn't normally see that growing up. But
I love it.
I did get to spend some time in Seattle. I was there for the Seahawks draft party. But something
I liked your fit.
Thank you. That was from the Pro Shop too, years ago, old school, vintage. But something that was fun for me, and it wasn't really Seahawks, it was more so the Chicago Bears. One of my Boston College friends and players on the BC football team, Ozzy Trapillo, got drafted to go to the Bears. So I'm watching the draft and all the things, and you know the Bears are up and their pick is in, and I start celebrating, and all the Seahawks fans are like looking at me at the chick in the back, and they're like, "Why is she? This is not the Bears party." But super excited for all the BC players who got drafted over the weekend. It was really exciting.
Yeah, I feel like Boston's been getting a lot of love. Like heading into this draft, I know a couple people were like, "Well, I don't know who's going to be coming out of BC." Look, I'll tell you this: when my brother was playing at FSU, I remember BC kind of having a bit of a prime, and they were a pain to play against. That's also another reason why I started looking at their soccer program.
Keep talking about it.
It's true, though. They always have some sneaky good players in the mix, and they have some seasons where they can ruffle some feathers. And look, they did it to FSU a couple of times. I think my brother graduated in 2009, so it was like 2011 and 2013, I want to say more specifically, is where I was just like, holy crap, this team is annoying. How do I sign up to go to BC? I always wanted to go to opposite colleges to try to like piss my brother off, so that was fun. Yeah.
That's funny. My sister and I didn't really have that like you know, competitiveness against each other more so, probably because we would have ended up playing with each other. If anything, she was like, you got to go to BC. And I was like, you're still in high school. Like, you don't have a choice. She's like, well, I want to go, so I want to go play with you. So it definitely was a funny way to do that. But
you guys played the same sport, right?
We did, yes.
Yeah, see, like, I had T-shirts that used to say, like, at least I don't suck up oxygen on the sidelines, because I played soccer while my brother was playing football. So, like, we had our own way of just, like, keeping each other competitively, like, engaged and stuff. He eventually ended up, like, burning all those shirts. But there was that, and then cheerleading. Like, awesome. I was in Gainesville my freshman year because I was like, all right, I'm going to be cheering in orange and blue while my brother is wearing garnet and gold. And he was like, yeah, right. Yeah. He went to my parents above my head, and I ended up at UCF. So
I love that. Well, that's all fun things, and I love the competitive, the rivalries, and all the things. But we do have a packed show today, so we will get right to it. We'll kick off our preview of the WNBA 2025 season. We're 19 days away, and there were some very exciting draft. There's been some key shifts this year. But let's just run through some key dates that you all should be prepared for. So we had the draft, and now we're headed into the first couple days of training camp. Started a few days ago on Sunday. And this will be a really critical training camp, mainly because 8 out of the 13 WNBA teams have new head coaches this season, which is just crazy to think about the intensity that you go into a training camp with. But then having a brand new head coach, it just adds a level of uncertainty, but also a new drive for competitiveness.
100%. And I think that's a great point out, because I feel like during the WNBA season, you heard a number of fans, kind of calling for some of these changes to come about. And when you have a new head coach, the fit is so conducive to what is their method, what is their system, how do they translate their message to their locker room, and how is it received, and then let alone rolled out and played out. So I think that we're looking at maybe some potential adjustment periods. The other good thing is that we've seen how when you have the right leader on each team, it makes the new messages roll out that much stronger, that much more effectively, and that much quicker, I want to say. Just kind of look at, the quick transitions and some of that energy level up we saw from an Angel Reese joining the league last year and being connective with their coach and being able to help push that message along. Caitlin Clark being another one. And then we have another major WNBA star in the mix with Paige Bueckers. So with all of the head coaching changes, I feel like if you have the right leader on your team, it's just going to help that adjustment period a bit faster.
It is also going to show us which front office and which head coach can really bring their team together the quickest, right? Because you're all kind of on this even, playing slate. You might have got new draft picks, some people in free agency, and throughout the expansion draft as well. So I'm interested to see, who can put their roster together, who built this program the best and can get to the top the quickest.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And it also makes you take a look at some of these teams that, they may have not had the greatest performances, but they've got some really interesting players on their roster. And that's obviously what makes the draft so interesting as well. You've got the lowest records kind of getting those better picks, and the pressure of, how quickly can we become a better team? And it does start in the front office with building out that team. But it just goes back to the All-Stars for me, like the ladies that can come and level up a program immediately. And it feels like a lot of pressure, but it also feels very doable.
And there's a lot of those. That's why the storylines in the WNBA now coming from college basketball, just our whole coverage of the women's March Madness was so fun, and the superstars that we got to cover there. So I'm super excited to now watch them in their professional careers. But preseason is going to begin on May 2nd. And we just got announced right before we got on the show that these games will be played with multiple broadcasts and a lot of highlights coming through them. The games will go from May 2nd to May 12th. And the two really exciting games, the Chicago Sky will play the Brazilian national team on LSU's campus. So it'll be a fun back-at-home game for Angel Reese. And then also Caitlin Clark in the Fever will go to Iowa's campus and play the Brazilian national team on May 4th. So a lot of travel for Team Brazil. So sorry, you guys, you're going from the south up north and all the things, but ESPN will be covering and airing this Fever game. So lots of travel going on for the Brazilian national team. But I think it's really cool that these teams get to play, or that these WNBA teams will go back to colleges like LSU and Iowa, and just the fan base that's going to rally around that. When I saw that, I was like, I want to go to that game, and I'm have no connection to Iowa or LSU.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, it's accessibility, right? And then you're going to a fan base that is already so appreciative and so on board and rallying behind not only this sport, but these teams and specific players. So you almost think of it as, what better spark can you have than kind of having the open of the season to be such as this, to be back on a campus, to kind of have those nostalgic ties and pulls to something, and have a fan base that is going to be probably beyond electric. You mentioned March Madness. You're gonna have those March Madness vibes pulled into the WNBA to get a season going, and I'm very excited for that. And also the international recognition. You're playing a team from Brazil. You're going to be now enticing and pulling in a completely different fan base that hopefully is going to track you throughout the rest of the season.
Definitely. And even for Angel Reese fans and Caitlin Clark fans who might not leave their states, right? They might only be able to go to their college's games. For them to get to see former players that they used to celebrate and cheer on in person again is so fun. So I think it's very creative by the WNBA and these teams to do this because you only get 2 or 3 preseason games, right? So it isn't like, the NFL where you have more than that. And so I think this is a really fun and exciting way to do it. But it's not for very long, right? There's only a few games. So opening night is May 16th. It's going to come quicker than we think. I remember we were talking about, will there be a strike? May 16th is coming up, and we did not have the strike. So it is all good.
Things are rolling out
as
planned.
Yes, so far. But teams have to take their rosters down to 11 or 12 players. They're allowed to have 18 players actively participating during camp. And the 2 big storylines will be Paige Bueckers making her WNBA debut for the Dallas Wings, as well as the Golden State Valkyries playing their first game ever. So when you look at those 2 headlines, which are you most excited for? The Valkyries' first game in the WNBA or Paige welcoming on to the Dallas Wings?
I feel like it sounds silly to say this is tough because obviously it's almost equivalent to how excited we all were to see Caitlin Clark join the WNBA, right? Like Paige Bueckers is kind of like the lead headline and grip here. But when you've got an inaugural season getting ready to come into play and you think about the fan base in Golden State, you think about what they'll probably incorporate to have NBA support the WNBA. I'm just like, wait a minute, what stops are they going to pull out for this, especially to open up a season and get a season going? So I think the anticipation is high and exciting for the Valkyries, but also Paige Bueckers. We talked about it a lot here on this show in terms of her being healthy, what she meant to UConn, the leadership that she had, the 2-way play that she had. And we saw Caitlin Clark come in and level up her team right away. And I feel like, again, circling back to the pressure and the expectation is going to be roughly the same. So I think it's just hands down it's Paige Bueckers right now, right?
Yeah, I'm excited, and it's fun to cheer on a specific player too, who you've watched through her college career, and just to watch her through UConn. I was such a big UConn fan, so I'm really excited for Paige and just getting for this all to kind of come to this one moment. I think everyone's been talking about, when will Paige get drafted? Where will she go? How will it go down? And so I'm really excited to see her have her WNBA debut with that.
Oh, yeah. And then just, again, you go to the Dallas Wings, they're a team that's looking for a massive turnaround. I think that they only won 9 games last season. And on top of it, they were not the best road team either. So you're getting a very versatile leader and somebody who was a 30 minutes a night kind of player when healthy. Like I said, is impactful on both sides of the ball and has a strong voice in terms of carrying her team through and just seeing the game so differently. So where you're expecting these lifts and these energy pickups is going to be just small things. Can the Wings open up a season and pick up some wins on the road right away? Check that box. Can they stay in games further than just having kind of a first quarter presence and then dropping off? So all these little small meticulous changes where now you've inserted such an all-star, that's going to be fun to see too.
And I will say on the Valkyrie side, I went to a Sharks game over a couple weeks ago.
Oh, I love the Sharks.
Yes, and so we're walking into the arena. First of all, beautiful arena. It was one of the nicest hockey arenas I've ever been in. And they were selling Valkyrie cape, or handing out Valkyrie capes.
They were?
And I was like, wait, I know that logo. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the new WNBA team who we've been I just didn't recognize it from it was on a little kid's back.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool because it's a great way to market at other sporting events and get your area and your surrounding fan bases just really hyped about what's going on.
Yep.
So I think the WNBA has done a really incredible job of not only hyping up their superstars coming from the college side in Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and now Paige Bueckers, but also really taking in these new expansion teams that we're going to see and eventually Portland.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because that's what I mean by depending on the area and the collaborations. That's more of the word that I'm looking for. I can imagine what, the Warriors collaborations will be in support of this inaugural season, but I didn't even think about the Sharks aspect of it and their team, very young team, and they've been in a bit of a rebuild phase themselves. So to already see that support and that excitement intertwining between WNBA, NHL, and again, we're just waiting to see what the NBA is going to do. I think that support just means a lot. It's encouraging fans to be supportive from the jump rather than wait for the results of things. And the mentality that's been talked about that be built around this team, kind of a defense first mentality. They brought in the right veteran presences to kind of help initiate and establish that from the beginning. I think they do really well in that area of just not only tying you to the players, but just having that more personal level to everything. Like, you know, I got excited when you mentioned the Sharks just because like they're younger players. Like they've had so much fun with those guys and they've kind of welcomed you into their world. And I think that that'll translate across the board for the inaugural season.
It's also just a conversation starter, right? Like you might not even be at an NBA game. You might not be at a Valkyries, you know, hype fest.
They may have just learned about it then.
Right. They may have just learned about it then, and like doing a Jumbotron interview with some of the players and just getting their faces in front of you.
Yeah.
And also showing, hey, our organization, who is a male professional team that's not even a basketball team, is backing this new WNBA team, which I thought was really special and really cool because you might have some hockey fans there who have never once thought about the WNBA.
Yeah.
Or never once really probably even care about basketball. Like that's the thing. People like different sports. And so it just kind of opens the door for new conversations and just a new awareness for what's going on in their area.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that it's only going to help things that much more. But that's a good point too. Like incorporating them now so that fans can at least have that curiosity as the season gets ready to take off here shortly. And I think they have so much support from the other professional athletes around the area also. So that's going to encourage and connect fan bases to something that they're not too privy to right out the gate.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have 2 more dates, okay? All of June is basically the Commissioner's Cup with the championship at the end. Each team will play their other teams in their conference, and there's a prize of $500,000. Okay.
Oh my God.
That's crazy. I saw that. I was like, can that be right? But no, $500,000. It's followed by the All-Star break. And then August 8th is when the trade deadline ends. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what the shifts will be throughout this preseason, I believe, and just with the new teams, the new coaching staffs, and the new, like, how the ownership has really orchestrated their teams. I'm just interested to see, okay, who did these teams get in the expansion drafts and who did they pick up in the college draft, and who are they going to want to move around, right? Like, you may have gotten too many rookies, and now you need to, hey, we need some veteran leadership. So I'm really interested to see which WNBA team feels the need to make a move.
Oh, see, that's a great question because I feel like we saw some really big trades in the offseason before March Madness even took off, and what they'll have to build around those pieces, considering the big pieces that moved, you know, like Plum and Brittany and stuff like that. Like, you kind of have to build around those key pieces and like just adding in the right players right away without overwhelming it. You mentioned at the top of the show, there's already a number of coaching changes to take place. Now you have a couple superstar changes that took place, and you're talking about a number of win now scenarios for some of these veteran presences. But we saw some of the younger teams do really good things last season. So I wonder if it would be so much of a key focus as to how many what the balance looks like. I wonder what the balance looks like now, basically, overall.
And if you're enjoying the show, you can catch new episodes of Respect Your Game every Tuesday. You can watch on YouTube or Twitch and listen on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. Definitely. And just to go back to the young presence, and it is one of the main storylines in the WNBA heading into this season is Paige Bueckers. And I would love to just hear your perspective on her entering into this Dallas Wings team, because for me, I think something that really sticks out to me is how much UConn has prepared Paige for this moment, right? It wasn't like she went to any school and she just was an absolute baller and took our team to some playoff games. Like, she went to UConn. Right. She played UConn women's basketball. There are countless numbers of women in the WNBA who played UConn women's basketball. And just to know how Gino has prepared her beyond the stats that she was able to get on the basketball court, right? Like, she's been prepared from a media sense. She's been prepared to take hard coaching. She's been prepared to play in late games in the season and to handle, competitiveness within the team and injuries. So I'm really excited to see how Paige handles going into the WNBA, having all that experience with the UConn team.
Oh, I think you put it perfectly. For one, to come from the UConn program, let's consider the caliber of that program, the expectation of that program, and what she has had to endure while being a UConn Husky. She had a season-ending injury in 2022 and had to make sure that she was still mentally tapped in enough to be a part of that team, to still elevate that team. And what I loved in the pressers, where we got to see a little bit more vulnerability from her as well as Gino, was the fact of like how they really pushed each other. So her acclimatization period, I don't really feel like she's going to have this rookie dust where it takes her a minute to kind of find her voice and her footing. I think she's going to step into Dallas and already kind of have that voice and have that presence. We can talk about her skill set and ability, till we're blue in the face. We know that she can be a weapon on both sides. And what I loved during the March Madness run, and I know fans kind of came for me a little bit as to how much I was watching, I get it. But like to see where she readjusted her game and to see how she made sure that she readjusted to elevate the people around her, you're coming into a Dallas Wings team that kind of needs that smarts and that person that's going to take the bird's eye view of what needs to happen, what adjustments need to take place. And she doesn't just do it on a game-by-game basis. She does it very well in the game. So you have an in-a-game adjuster and leader coming to a team that, you know, they just had these moments where they sparked a little bit. I remember talking about the Wings a few times throughout the regular season and being like, you know, they made this team uncomfortable. I think they had a really good game and run versus Connecticut once, and everyone was like, oh, could this be a turning point for the Wings? So those little moments where it's like they just needed to do that much to get past their opponent, I feel like Paige can be that spark for them, not only from a skill perspective, but from a vocality perspective. And then again, you're getting a player who healthy 30 minutes per night. I mean, the steals alone, we had a number of teams that had a really good defensive spine in the WNBA, and that got them through a number of games before the whole post-Olympics break came about, and then you just saw other teams take off. So I think Paige just brings a lot of different things to the table, and it's going to be from her growth at UConn.
Yeah, and I love what you called it, the rookie dust. I think you said, like, she doesn't have any of that. Like,
I would be surprised.
This is like in my opinion, it would be like a off her chest. Like,
right.
All right, I'm finally here. Like, let's just play and let's just go. And I think that's what's so cool about her situation is that she doesn't have that, like, pent up, oh, no, I have this. Yes, she has high expectations, but, like, this is what she's been working towards this whole time.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that.
And she's going to bring fans in with her from UConn.
Oh my gosh, I'm the new Dallas Wings fan for sure. I'm all about it. And I think that's what's so exciting is like when you bring in like not only just having a new team, but having a new player from college. Like now you just got a whole new bunch of UConn fans that are now Dallas Wings fans.
Big time. Natalie Nori being one of them. I'm pretty sure.
I would love to know what the jersey sales are for her right now. Oh. I should have looked that up before the show.
Yep.
But maybe
we will look it up.
Well, I know a team that's going to have a lot of new jersey sales are the Valkyries in their inaugural season. And just looking at the identity of this season, right? Natalie Kasey, the head coach, really emphasized competitiveness throughout this entire process. And she said, you know, we don't need to have a face of the team, you know, coming out of the draft because we're going to find that throughout their training camp. And I really liked how she said that because it kind of sets the stage for like, it doesn't matter how high you got drafted, if we took you or not, like if you've been, you know, part of our, you know, program in their ideas since the expansion draft, like you got to come and work, and that's how we're going to find who's the face of our team. So I really liked how she said that. I think it also kind of took the hype down from their draft, right? Because they already had that expansion draft. So it wasn't like, oh, we're building the dream team in our expansion draft. Oh, and then we also have the WNBA draft later where we'll get to grab some college girls. And so I think that really set the stage for the tone of how they're going to go into this training camp.
Yeah, well, I love the point out of like not needing a face of the franchise right now, because then you're just going to see who naturally rises to the occasion on that. And we talked a little bit about, you know, balanced rosters when it comes to the WNBA and if any further movement we may see from any other teams. You mentioned, you know, the grittiness, the relentlessness, like some of the identities that they want to incorporate into their team and whatnot. And I feel like you're going to be able to see, like, if there's younger players that can rise to that occasion right away. And when you're a younger, newer team, not younger, when you're a newer team, more specifically, then you kind of want that younger person to be able to like step up and commandeer and have that presence, because you're looking for somebody who can eventually be the face for the next 5, you know, plus years as this sport continues to grow, as this league continues to grow, and you're not having so much more movement. You're creating stability and setting the tone from the get-go. But they did also make a point of emphasis of some of the leaders that they brought in, from Tiffany Hayes and Kate Martin, who bring experience and leadership. So you'll see if the veterans, you know, are sitting here helping pull the younger women along with them, or if they're just somebody who ends up naturally becoming the face of the franchise.
Yeah, I am really excited to see how Kate Martin does, right? Because she spent time with Kasey in Las Vegas, and she's a second-year player. I'm really interested to see, can she go from being more of a role player to that starting guard for this organization and kind of be that face, right? It would be really cool. She was one of the people who the Valkyries interviewed, or who was on the Valkyries interview at the Sharks game. And so I was fired up because I've been talking about her on Respect Her Game. Like, there she is in person, right down there, 10 feet away. So that was pretty exciting for me to see. But yeah, I think this is really exciting to have a coach that is driven less on like the hype of the players, because you have all these talented players players professionally, coming out of college as well, but a coach and an administration that is focused on the intensity of training camp.
Well, yeah, because I think something else that we saw notably this previous season is that your top players, they're going to go down with injury, or you're going to go up against teams that find a way to contain and isolate them. And then it's like creating that next woman up mentality nice and early without really setting it as that, I think is going to help teams have better runs and probably deeper runs getting into those postseasons. We knew that previously teams have relied heavily on Plum, and if it wasn't her getting it done in the game, then like what was going on? And we saw that more in the last season than we did previously. So not kind of putting that on anyone specific from the jump, I think is kind of a really cool method. Mm-hmm. And then also just seeing how someone can kind of translate outside of their, like you said, like that one like plug-in role or like that supporting role versus that like leading role, and how naturally that might come.
Well, another team that has higher expectations probably than the Valkyries on their postseason endeavors is the Indiana Fever. And let me just read you this potential starting lineup for the Fever. Bonner, Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Howard, and Mitchell. Like, when you just read that, you're like, oh my word, how could they not, right, go far in the postseason? And I think just with the addition of Stephanie White back in Indiana, and then you have Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston, like that's a duo that I'm super fired up for. And just the hype that's been around the Indiana Fever since Caitlin Clark really got there. Yeah. I think, all eyes will be on them, even though you have Paige Bueckers in Dallas, you have the new expansion team. There's going to be conversations, and we'll get to in a second, about Portland in 2026, right? There's other things going on. The Sparks and what they have with their new free agency. But when you look at the Indiana Fever, how well do you think they will do in the postseason this year?
Ooh, well, let's just say I think that they exceeded expectations with the addition of Caitlin Clark. Like, you already knew that she was coming in and going to be impactful, but like, I don't know if anyone thought, oh crap, like the Fever really are going to go as far as they had the opportunity to go, and that raised the bar of expectation. Just again, you have Clark that leveled up her team, and she's such a good leader in her own way. But I was really impressed with Mitchell, last season, and just the ways that she stepped up and the way that she was set up to help out her team when need be. Then you're talking about Bonner. I mean, talk about clutch plays almost throughout the entire season. 80% of her plays were super clutch and helped pull through. So you're talking about different degrees and calibers of players that are now coming together and supposedly to push the benchmark together. I feel like the expectations and I feel like the standard just got so much higher for the Fever, and I don't think that it's all hype. I think that they're going to be able to supersede that. Before Clark came in, Fever were 20 for 20 in wins and losses, and they were able to take that next step. They don't have to step too much further outside of what they did last season. So yeah,
if anything, they have the hype, but they're walking fully in it, and they have the experience to do it. So lots going on and coming up in the WNBA. So stay tuned for March 16th to kick off their season. And if you're enjoying the show, you can catch new episodes of Respect Her Game every Tuesday. You can watch the show on YouTube or Twitch and listen on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. All right, so I'm super excited to talk some football on Respect Her Game today. It was a wild NFL draft, so we're going to break down the newest members of the New England Patriots, Vrabel's first draft class with the organization, and a draft class that is getting very high praise amongst the league and football fans everywhere. So there were 11 players drafted for the Patriots. Some of the first offensive tackle, Will Campbell, stole the show in his draft game interview that I would love to talk about later. Running back Travion Henderson and wide receiver Kyle Williams. So, Kasey, just right off the bat, what names are you most excited for in this new Patriots team?
Henderson.
Yes, you were. That's the first thing she said when we walked in.
That's the one name. I mean, it's funny, too, because I texted the guys as soon as I saw the pick because they continued with the coverage for the draft, and I happened to be off that day, and I'm pretty sure I all caps them as well, and I was like, they got my guy. But, yeah, Henderson's a name I'm very excited about, and I caught a little bit of heat because people thought that I didn't love Ashton Genty, and that was not the case whatsoever. Of course, an amazing, remarkable running back. But something, especially growing up around college football the way that I have, is that you've got to look at conference. You've got to look at strength of schedule, and you've got to look in comparison to like what adversity each running back had to deal with and which adversity is going to translate to the NFL best. So it was nothing against Genty. It was the fact that Boise State's schedule in comparison to Ohio State's schedule, way different, especially when you're talking about leading defenses in college football. One team's really going against those top defenses. So you're just seeing a different caliber of football IQ, of efficiency. And that's where I was really coming from with like loving Henderson a little bit more. And it was also more like the value of where they could grab him in the draft. So I loved it. I feel like they got him in perfect timing. I feel like that he's going to be able to come into the system, and he's not going to be hindered or held back by an offensive line that's in a rebuild mode. Like, you've got to take that into account. Your running backs are kind of your saviors in a lot of moments. They can't do much behind offensive lines that are struggling a lot. But if they had to deal with that adversity in college, because Ohio State's offensive line got completely fractured by injuries, and they were still able to be impactful, they were still able to be super clutch, I was just like, this fits. And the team reporter over at the Patriots, like, of course I wanted to pick her brain on everything, and she was like, every guy they grabbed in the draft fits the culture, fits the personality of what Vrabel is building here. So the buy-in is so high. She already said that the energy and the buy-in is so high over there. So I'm a big fan of what they did in the draft, but I'm so glad they grabbed Henderson.
Yeah, I am too, and I love that you touched on the culture piece, because that's exactly what Trayvon Henderson is. He was the captain of this Ohio State football team, huge culture guy, one of the biggest leaders for Ohio State last season. I got to cover him a lot with Sports Spectrum throughout the training camp and throughout the end of their season. It's really cool that he got to finish on that win, on that national championship. But this is a fast guy. This is a really speedster. And it's also really special for him because he gets to be with the Patriots with one of his best friends, G. Scott Jr., tight end out of Ohio State as well, which is super cool for him to be able to go there with his friend, and great addition to the tight end room, being, led by Hunter Henry, and both really explosive players who, like you said, are going to fit into the culture that Vrabel is really building.
Yeah, because there was moments during Ohio State season where a lot of us were like, where's this team going? I mean, especially I'm pretty sure it was between like week 4 and 6. And I also love that Vrabel's focus was culture and aggression and, just basically like staying in it mentally. And I think about some of the adversity again. I just touch back on some of the things Ohio State went through, and like some of the notable moments where it was like, they had to mentally really stay in the situations, and they had to mentally continue to propel themselves as a great team, even though they had some injuries that held them back at moments. And I feel like when you can get through that, and when you're the captain of that, then that's going to help translate well when it comes to the NFL. Yeah. So, and then again, relationship is another point of focus that he has mentioned. You tied the relationship between Henderson and the tight end room. So I'm really psyched about the grabs that they got, because I think it just really stuck true to form. So we didn't hear one thing in press conferences leading up to the draft and kind of saw something different. And we both know there are going to be so many avenues when it comes to this draft. We saw tons of drama, but it wasn't from the Patriots, so I was happy about that.
Good, no drama, but all real, hard-nosed football, physical guys, right, with high culture and high character is really what we saw in those first 2 days. You see the Patriots really building support and protection and playmakers around Drake May, which is what, that's your biggest asset, and that's what they went to do.
Right.
And you could really see Vrabel's confidence in knowing that he can take whoever they get in the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th rounds defensively, that he has the confidence to train them into the defenders that he wants to have, the defense that he wants to have. And so I just loved how to see, like you said, we weren't shocked by what happened. We just saw the Patriots go for their foundational pieces, build support, protection around Drake May, while also getting some awesome names that we can all be excited about. I'm fired up about Trayvon Henderson. It's awesome, right? And Will Campbell too.
Yes.
The tackle, his interview right when he got drafted, when he kind of got emotional and he was like, I will fight and I will die to protect my quarterback. That was awesome. And that's what Patriot fans want. That's what we've known the Patriots to be for so long. And it feels like we're getting back to that Patriot championship level focus team.
Oh my gosh, big time. I feel like it's funny because we had the On the Clock draft show, and as soon as we were getting pieces of Campbell's press conference at the same time, it was just I think all of us were getting even more fired up, getting the bits and pieces and the sound bites of him. But yeah, you want that guy that's going to run through a wall for you, and to still say something like that and to still see the impact on it. I mean, he cried during his interview. To see the wave of emotions and the roller coaster that what this meant to him, it just tells you that you've got somebody who's going to make sure that they do their job at the end of the day. Because I know there's question marks with like his arm length and stuff like that. And again, some of the reporters over on the Patriots side were saying that like wingspan wise, like it was just like barely within an inch. So like some of the things that we were hearing headline wise and statistically, some of the things that got blown up, like we weren't focusing on his strength, we weren't focusing on his leadership, and like it all comes back to just being a fit for Vrabel. And you know, a number of people are very excited for Campbell, but the content of his character should make you that much more excited.
Yeah, and the whole arm thing like totally blows my mind, because you are not that high of a draft pick. You're not the Patriots' #1 overall draft pick if there's like a problem with your physique, right? Like Vrabel has gone up against tackles his whole life. He knows when he sees a good one, right? And so like that was just like not even a care in his mind about that. But yeah, I thought that was so interesting, and it just kind of shows you like this guy was protecting Jaden Daniels. Like I think he's gonna do a great job protecting Drake May.
Well, and I love that he has that switch, right? Because when he talks, he's very, you know, you can tell he's compassionate, he's a sweet guy, but then it's just like you look at some of his tape and you're like, this man is psychotic, but in the best way possible.
And that's who you want on your team, right?
You want the switch flip.
High character guys, but also someone who's going to go out there and do anything to protect your quarterback.
Oh, definitely. And when you have that encouragement and you have that confidence, especially in a young quarterback like Drake May, like, you know, sometimes it's just kind of having that little bit of a spark or that extra like layer of relationship that will level up a quarterback's play, because the anticipation of what he can do, it can kind of give you a bit of a jump and a buzz as well. And I mean, consider what Drake May has done without any help. Like this little bit of help, the relationship on top of it, the brotherhood that we know is going to be built across the board for this entire roster. So I feel like there's just good sparks all around for this team.
Definitely. And I do love that how you brought up like what Drake May was already able to do, and it just reinforces like how much of an emphasis the Patriots put on like, hey, we got to go get our guy and we got to go help him, not only in free agency but in the draft. They go get Stephon Diggs in free agency, right, a veteran wide receiver, but then they get Kyle Williams from Washington State, very fast, deep ball threat. And so I love the pairing of the veterans as well as the brand new guys, like hot off the press from college, because they're really putting their rooms together well, guys who can lead, but also great talent, right? You're not just getting Joe Schmo off the road, like you're getting Kyle Williams from Washington State, somebody who juked out Travis Hunter, you know, like come on, it's pretty awesome. And so I'm really excited to just see how the Patriots have really put this and orchestrated this all together, and they deserve the title. The Patriots did the best in the draft. Like, they deserve the hype for that.
Yeah, I love that you point out Williams, because I'm pretty sure it was like one of the highest picks for Washington State for one, but for two, to bring in a Stephon Diggs who seems to be on a bit of a different wavelength in terms of like how he can be more of a leader. And his press conference, you didn't see a competitive nature in terms of like him against anybody else in that wide receiving room. You saw the compete in terms he wants to come in and win, but you also already saw him speaking to and complimenting the other guys in the room. That's also why he didn't take Polk's number. That's a number. So the way that he's already carrying himself, not that they have the same kind of game, but the advice and like the way that he can already kind of like talk to a Williams and encourage a Williams, and like how he'll be able to translate to this system even quicker. And I feel like he's going to have May hype, and May is going to be hyped because he likes to take those risky plays. And now he has somebody who is equally as gassed up to make those plays work with him. So I think you point out something really great in terms of bringing in Diggs, having that leadership, but also putting a really good combination of like leaders and young guys and where the NFL is going, where the game is translating to. I feel like this is a team that's going to kind of jump ahead and be in the place in which the game is moving to in the next couple of years.
Yeah, people should be scared of the New England Patriots coming into this new season, just with the depth that they now have on their team, the experience that they already have and they've brought in, and, you know, veteran centers, veteran wide receivers, and then pairing it with their young talent. And like you said, the hey, I'm not going to take your number, or hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to show you that I want to have a relationship with you. Like, that's the culture that Vrabel is building, and it just feels good. It feels exciting to be a Patriots fan.
It does, especially when you trust the mind of Mike Vrabel and the team that he's building around him. Like, that's the mound that I've been standing on since day one. I was a big fan of what he did when he grabbed the reins over in Tennessee, and I think that we're seeing that translate so well this way. And it's one thing to have a player's coach, but it's another thing to have a coach that can really kind of blend together the old with the new. Like, you're not seeing this like really this deep contrast of like out with the old, in with the new. You're seeing a good blend of like Vrabel being able to piece it all together, and that's something I highly respect when you're trying to grow a team.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm excited for the Patriots' upcoming season. Lots of bright spots and a lot of things to look forward to for the football season. It's going to be here before you know it. And if you're enjoying the show, you can catch new episodes of Respect Our Game every Tuesday. You can watch on YouTube or Twitch and listen on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. Okay, well, things are heating up in the PWHL and Boston Fleet. And Kasey, I know I've seen you quite around the team a lot. Well, there are 2 games remaining at Montreal and then again against Minnesota. The Fleet are coming off a huge 3-0 win against Toronto. So, Kasey, what do you think was the biggest difference maker over their Toronto win?
Oh, my gosh. There was a number of things that I thought was very notable for their win over Toronto. The one thing that I want to point out is coming back from Worlds, and I was talking to a few of the ladies over there, as well as shout out to Faith, their PR lady, and they talked about the fact that like you're not sure what the rust period might be coming back from something like this. And we know Hillary Knight had a killer performance over at Worlds, but you didn't see any rust. That was what I enjoyed the most. And being there at the game, it was also fan appreciation night. You saw a Boston Fleet team also get off to a very quick start. And that's not something that we've seen that often throughout. We've seen this team rally back. We've seen this team force overtimes. We've kind of seen a lot of that like back end, second end energy and momentum, but we haven't seen that from the go. And it was like, puck drop, Boston Fleet, go. So Lexi opened up the scoring, and they just continue to feed off each other from there as well. So that's what I saw in terms of like how they were able to not only set the pace, set the tone, but completely command that game. They came out to a hot start. Second period, you saw Toronto get a little testy, try to force things in their manner. They did outshoot the Boston Fleet, but you didn't see them crumble under that pressure. It was more of like a accuracy versus volume, like Boston Fleet being very accurate with their opportunities and their scoring chances versus Toronto kind of just continuing to push pucks forward and try to get them on the net. And that didn't make the Fleet crumble whatsoever. Coach Kessel even mentioned it in the post-game press conference. Like, yeah, we got our backs to the wall just a little bit for a second in that second period, but we didn't allow it to take us out of our game. And I asked the girls after the game as well, like, does this feel like the most complete game that you've played all season long? 60 minutes of hockey. And for the most part, everyone said yes.
Yeah, well, having been outshot and then winning 3-0 is pretty wild to me. So I'd love to hear more. So here's what Coach Kessel had to say post-game.
We worked hard, obviously, with our group that was away, but I think the energy is just different when the room's full. And so it's nice to have everyone back, and it's loud in there, so it's nice.
It's nice to have the next person step up today.
Yeah. It was great to see, a little bit more of a scoring distribution, and I thought all 4 lines were going and anyone could be on the ice at any time, and that's, what a coach's dream is. That's what you want every game.
Right, all 4 lines going, and she's able to have confidence in all 4 lines. And a huge, re-addition to the team is Hannah Belka. In what ways do you feel like Hannah Belka, gave this Fleet team a boost?
Oh my gosh! Well, to come back from injury for one, she picked up an assist that night, and then on top of picking up an assist, she was loading up on hits. I think she had like 3 or 4 hits on the night on the day as well. So to have that confidence to come back, and something else that I loved is that Hannah did talk about the support in the locker room when you're coming back from injury. This locker room has had to deal with a number of injuries for each of their top athletes, and she just talked about the support and the encouragement and also the things that you see when you're sitting up in the box. You kind of relearn the game in a different way, or you see things that you don't see when you're down on ice level. And so I feel like all of that just kind of was like fully encompassed upon her return. And there's such a great relationship in this locker room that I feel like it just adds that jump to have, Hannah get back on the ice and be playing alongside of you. And you saw it translate quickly. Also, something else that Coach Kessel mentioned there that's important is like, all 4 lines were rolling. So when you get a Hannah back and when health is starting to translate on your side and you get depth scoring when you're getting ready to go for the most pivotal part of the season being postseason, I think all of it helps. It all creates jumps and momentum swings, and it just changes the dynamic in the most encouraging way possible. So Hannah just kept saying how excited she was to be back. But I think you saw it in her game just as much as you saw it in her smile in the post-game pressers.
Yeah, it's also really dangerous to have that many threats, right? And it's like your opponent can never be off. Oh, shoot, next line. All right, we can't, this can't be a breather, catching our breath, right? If anything. And just excited for Annabelle, and I actually overlapped with her at Boston College.
I love it.
So I was in a few communication classes with her, and I remember there was this one, and it was more like stats focused, and I'm not a math girly. That's why I'm doing podcasting with Kasey and getting to talk. And so she was a big help for me because she knew what she was doing in that class, and I definitely admired her intelligence in the communications class.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure it translates too. But yeah, she just has such a bubbly personality, and we kind of talked about it earlier. Like, I love when people have just that switch that flips and whatnot. So she definitely has that. But I think something else that played in for the Boston Fleet during that game, that big win versus Toronto, is the fact that, like, as the team is trending on the healthier side, as you get, Hannah's back into the lineup, you're finding stability at the perfect time. I just remember, I think it was like January, February, we were talking to Natalie, and she was, mentioning the fact that, like, this team is starting to find their identity a little bit. It's very hard to find your identity when the lineup is changing quite often, when some of your star players are going down or when your depth scoring is going down. So they're getting everyone healthy at the right time. Hannah creates that jump and also has her own formality of leadership, which I think helps too. But there was so much buzz in the building, and I want to give a big shout out to Lexi because she's the fashionista of the team.
She
so
is.
It was already
She's
like,
got the best
what's she gonna wear? Yeah, the walk up was already one thing, and it was like, okay, she came in hot with like a whole set on, and it's like, then she opens the scoring, then everybody just goes completely berserk. And they did something else really well too. Toronto has one of the top power plays when it comes to the PWHL, and they were able to make sure that did not create any momentum and take the game away from them whatsoever. Coach gave a big shout out to Jill Saunier because she had like some key block shots in the mix. But it just felt like an all hands on deck from every player, regardless of their position and their role. Everybody just kind of expanded themselves in that moment to make sure that they continued to control the pace in the game versus Toronto.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of the switches within the team and in the roster and in the lineups, and there was a goalie switch.
Yeah.
Right? So what are your thoughts on the decision? Because we did win 3-0. The Fleet did win 3-0. So what were your thoughts on making this goalie switch so late in the season?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that play into it. Everyone coming back from Worlds, for one, you want to check in with fatigue. Natalie mentioned something brilliant that I didn't even think about at the moment. If jet lag was going to be a factor for anybody returning from playing for Worlds. But then you also have to see, okay, where does our depth truly lie? And goalie becomes the most crucial position when you get into the postseason. We're seeing it right now in the NHL. Some of the best goalies are not coming up for their teams right now. So to know that you kind of have that back and in that rotation, Soderberg's been great. Frankel's been great. Now we need to see what Clara can do. And I mean, to come in and post a shutout is fantastic. And even she mentioned it. She's just been waiting for her moment. And I think that she more than rose to the occasion. She has some funny pregame rituals with oranges, but she didn't have oranges. She actually had Eggs Benedict and gave them a shout out after her big 3-0 shutout victory. But I think that a lot of it was just kind of like, let's see what we have here. And this was a good time to try to figure it out. And you can just see the appreciation and the gratitude for Clara to get that opportunity and that bump.
Yeah, and you said 27 shutouts, right?
Yeah.
27 stops. 29 stops. And that is just incredible, especially, having that quick change. And so here's what Coach Kessel had to say about the goalie switch.
Yeah, I mean, not an easy decision. We have 3 of the best goalies in the world, and I think, she had a tremendous Worlds, but so did Emma. And I don't know, I think just it was a gut feeling, and we kind of went with it. And, it was a tough decision because they're both fantastic. And, you want both of them to do well and succeed. And but Clara stepped in and played tremendous. So we're really happy for her.
Well, like we mentioned, the Fleet have 2 games remaining at Montreal and then versus Minnesota. And so here's what they have to do in order to get the number 2 seed. There's a few things. They must win out, no overtimes. They need actual wins. They also need Toronto to lose another game. It's always very hard as a player and as a team when you're like hoping the other teams lose. It's like kind of out of your power.
You're trying not to focus on it.
You're trying not to focus on it, but you kind of need it to get done. And then that would secure them the number 2 seed. And Montreal currently sits at the top with 48 points. But just fast forwarding to tonight, their game against Montreal. They're playing the number 1 seed. What do you think the Fleet need to do in order to get the win tonight?
Yeah, well, we've seen these 2 teams play each other so tremendously hard. I think it just kind of taps. I think this team just has to tap back to what they did so well versus Toronto. You know, you were going against a top power play unit. You had people like Jill Saunier put their body on the line and come up, you know, very strong for her team and blocking those shots. But you don't want to be in the position to where you're getting pinned in your zone, you're over defending because you're going against a very tactical team, a bit quicker paced team, and then a difficult goalie. So I talked about kind of accuracy versus that volume. Accuracy could play in hard for them versus Montreal tonight because you're trying to get past one of the best goalies in the league. But the biggest thing is going to be setting the tone as fast as possible, just like they did versus Toronto. You don't want to be picking up your game towards the end of the second period or jumping back in the third period or forcing overtime, because that's just kind of been the script between these two teams just about all season long. It's getting on the board early. It's being able to protect your lead, and it's forcing Montreal to play your game. And I think that they'll have the ability to do so. Again, they'll be able to draw from some stability from Saturday. So I'm hoping that, like, again, health being on their side, getting all four lines involved. They did a lot of things very well versus Toronto that I think can help them versus Montreal.
And getting all four lines involved, is there a player on the fleet that you think is going to have a big game that people probably aren't talking about right now?
Oh, that's a great question. Defensively, I feel like they just had some people get extremely involved. I mean, Keller had a great game. And I mean, she comes up strong in a number of categories for this team. But I don't know if I'm just like stuck on Lexi because of like fashion and her opening the scoring versus Toronto, but
look good, feel good, play good. Like,
yeah,
it's a real
just like
thing.
the whole combination
So
of
more
things.
so, my question should have been asked, like, who are you most excited for to see walk into the game?
I'm most excited to see Lexi walk into the game, but honestly, actually, I want to see what next step Hannah takes. That excitement and that gratitude just to be back on the ice, and again, to come up with an assist, to have those hits. This is going to be a neck-and-neck matchup, and I feel like Hannah can be a difference maker. So I'm going to look to her for tonight's action.
Sometimes taking you off the field or off the ice can really give you a new level to your game because you have a whole new appreciation for it.
Yep, that's exactly what I think that it is. It's the level of appreciation, and Boston Fleet just want to do better than they did last year, and they're in a good position to do so.
They are looking for redemption to get that championship cup, and I'm super excited about it. So tune in tonight for a Fleet game. Loved all the WNBA and Patriots. Got to talk a little football on Respect Her Game Today coverage. I'm AB here with Kasey Hudson. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Respect Her Game. We'll see you next Tuesday.